Welcome back to the ChiroFit podcast, your number one podcast for all things fitness, injury rehab, and flexible nutrition. I'm your host, Dr. Yannick Schultz. And today we are going to be talking about the real reason you still don't have abs over 35 and what you can do about it. And I'm going to cut through some of the BS, going to give you some real life advice on somebody in this position who is in a business, busyness, the schedule, the craziness. How do you put all these things together and still take care of yourself? And at the end of the day, if you have kids, if you have other priorities beyond yourself, you tend to move that down the list. You become a low piece on the totem pole. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how, when you get to that over 30, when life hits you hard, what you can do. So I'm going to tell you, if you are over 30 and you're still trying to crunch your way to abs, you've been lied to. And it's just not the realistic way to kind of get there. And you've probably all heard that abs are made in the kitchen. And there's some real truth to that. And I'll kind of dissect the reasons as to why we're maybe not getting there and what's kind of failing you in this situation. And it's not just because you don't want it bad enough, right? That's probably not the good enough reason to say you're not seeing the results because of X. You've just been kind of sold broken strategies over time to help you achieve something, and the work harder doesn't really apply for people like us who, run businesses, have kids, real stress, real cravings, right? Hormones, things that impact us at this age, both men and women equally. So I'm going to give you kind of some actual reasons, 3 actual reasons that you still don't have abs and what you can do about it. So let's dive in. Let's talk about it. Abs are not exactly made in the kitchen. You do have to have that foundation. Some of that, to be frank, is genetics. And nobody wants to hear that, but there's a reality that abs are a little bit more of your structure. Everyone has a different look. Everyone has a different foundation. I do truly believe that everyone does have abs at the end of the day. It's part of our anatomy. Everyone has them, but different levels of how they're shown, how easily they're shown, the amount of skin or tissue that is over or hiding that is going to be different for everyone. But genetics truly do play a role. For me, as an example, I've kind of always been the kid with abs. And yes, I know what everyone's going to say is, okay, well, yeah, you're lucky. You don't have to work. It's not that I don't have to work at them. I've had them, but I always worked at them as a kid. I was kind of obsessed over having abs when I was a kid. It was kind of when all these magazines came out and, the era of watching, Arnie movies or following, fitness influencers or the magazine covers, the, Men's Health and all these different things. That's, you kind of idolize that. So you wanted to emulate that as well. But that also created poor habits, restrictive eating, and all these other kind of, we'll say, disordered strategies that didn't serve me super well and led to other issues kind of down the road that we'll talk about. But I still have to work for it. I have them because I work for them, not because they're just genetically there. Am I more likely to have them because of genetics? Yeah, that's the truth. And some of you may not have that blessing per se, but it's all the work that's kind of put in at the same time and what you're willing to do to have or keep them. I would say that I've worked hard over time to make sure that I have them. And that's by being mindful of food and being mindful of staying active. And that can become very easy over time. Again, if you're a busy individual, you probably look back and think to yourself, wow, I was more fit, in my 20s, or I was more fit years ago before kids. But life happens. Real stresses, real things do happen. But it's now, how do we navigate those situations and find a strategy that works for you? And this is what I do as an online coach. I build strategies for busy people over 30 who essentially want to still live a flexible, normal life. I've gone from both sides of things. I went really deep into kind of the bodybuilding side of things where I thought that was truly what I wanted to be, as we'll say, jacked as possible and get as much muscle as possible. I never really wanted to compete, but I did have some desire for it. I chose not to. But I fought hard for that. And over the past year, with running 3 businesses that have become busier and busier, a wedding that's coming up, and just piecing all of these things together with life and finding time for your friends and family and partner and all these life things that come up, how do you then create more flexibility with that? And so on the nutrition side, this is what I'm going to talk about. But I think with the whole thing, as somebody who's in their 30s, it's important to then find that more flexible approach where you can still look good, you can look jacked, but it doesn't have to be everything and that you do, and it doesn't have to consume your whole life. And I've now found my way back to that. I've gone the over-restrictive, again, bodybuilding approach to things, thinking too much about every little detail. And now I'm back to a spot where I'm enjoying outings with friends. I am having some drinks here and there. I'm enjoying ice cream and chocolate and Oreos pretty much every day. And I'm fitting that into my diet, into my lifestyle, because those are the things that I ultimately enjoy. Everything has to be in moderation. Nothing comes out without some sacrifice. But ultimately, you can still fit all of these things into your life and into your lifestyle. It is 100% doable. So, why? 3 reasons that you're probably not seeing your abs as a busy adult. And the reason 1 is that you're probably not in a true caloric deficit. The amount of people that I talk to that are, we're consulting for coaching, that tell me that they're not tracking. And so right away, that tells me that you probably have no idea what's coming in, what's coming out. And I've used this analogy before, but if you are budgeting for a trip, you're saying, hey, I want to go to Greece next week or whatever, next month. And you don't know the finances that are coming in or that are coming out, how can you possibly budget for that trip or have enough money to go for it, right? You could get to the trip and just guess, and maybe it'll turn out good. Maybe you'll have enough money, or maybe you'll be dead broke and you won't be able to go on the trip. And your calories and tracking are very similar. It's in a sense, it's like if you don't know what's coming in and how much you're outputting, you don't know where your energy balance is, and you're likely not in a true caloric deficit. And so if you're screaming, why am I not seeing changes? It's probably because of that. Now, if you're tracking, but you're not seeing results, then you are likely not tracking accurately enough. And I'm sorry to tell you. Yeah, it could be based on the app you're using, the tracking you're doing, or the little inconsistencies of things that you are maybe not actually tracking, right? The little extra bit of olive oil that you didn't really look at, the extra handful here and there of things. Maybe it's that glass of wine you had at night that didn't really count. Whatever those things add up. What I just named probably adds up to another 500 calories, which is not a huge deal. But if you do that every day, every couple of days, your total for the week is no longer in a deficit. You're just no longer in a deficit. That happens one day, not a big deal. It is a blip on the radar. Move on, continue. But if you're doing this repeatedly, this is where the accuracy matters. And if you want to see real results, my suggestion is track, at least for a couple of weeks, to have an understanding of where your baseline is. The likelihood is you're going to eat similar foods again, so you'll at least know the value of things. Even for that first month is like, okay, now I understand the value of certain foods and what a plate portion looks like. That's another thing, is portions, right? It's so easy to think that you're eating a normal portion, whereas you had a thing of rice that's actually this big, whereas one serving of rice is sadly this big. So it's hard to visualize it just off a plate. But once you do it, you start measuring or weighing stuff or tracking stuff, you'll look at a plate now and be like, wow, that's actually not, 500 calories like I thought it was. I'm probably actually eating 1,000. And so this comes into the accuracy of tracking and being in kind of that deficit. For women, it can oftentimes be the opposite, is not eating enough. This is for men as well. I've had this with men in my clients who are men as well, but especially for women, I see it where they're not eating enough. And so it's not always eating it truly in a deficit, but eating the appropriate amount for what your body needs. If you're, running on fumes and you're just having coffee for breakfast and then you're out the door and you're binging later because you put all that off, that's not benefiting you. And if you're also just crashing your hormones and not making yourself feel very good, your stress is high, your cortisol is high, your sleep is bad, these are all recipes for your body not giving you what you want. Your body will give you what you want when you give it what it needs. And so ultimately, if you're not giving it enough fuel, if you're eating, 1,000 calories, and I've seen this, people eating 1,000 calories, they get busy, the day goes on, then they're not hungry in the evening, or you fast all day and then you get to home and then you're trying to fit this all in. And maybe you get the calories, but is the likelihood that you ate your body weight in protein in 1 or 2 meals or in one sitting? No, not likely. So protein plays a huge role. It helps with hormone balance. It helps with energy balance. It helps with building muscle. The more muscle you build, the more it helps with your metabolism. And this leads me to my second point, which is your training isn't supporting your fat loss. You're either doing all cardio, you're doing HIIT classes, all these different things that are, again, probably just stressing the system more than they need to. At the end of the day, you probably don't want to hear it, but strength training, so building muscle, and when I say strength training, that doesn't mean you have to power lift or throw things over your head. It means training with resistance where you are building muscle and changing your tissue. This is also going to change the overall look of your body at the end of the day, so that when you strip away that layer of unwanted fat, you are looking at something that you would rather see. You're sculpting essentially, right? So when you strip that away, you're seeing the desired look. But resistance training at least 3 to 4 times a week is going to help with muscle, so tissue, joint health, your metabolism, it can regulate hormones. It is, in a sense, far less stressful on the system than a go class. Those can be fun once in a while, but these HIIT workouts are just cardio is not really helping you build the muscle. And the muscle will ultimately also help you with your metabolism being better, which means you will ultimately burn more in the long run, which is a good thing. We want that, right? And so we need to be, understanding of that. So train with intent. And it doesn't have to be crazy. Again, 3 to 4 times a week can be sufficient for most adults or most individuals who are trying to build muscle and have a busy schedule. So if you don't feel like you can adhere to, 5 or 6, that's okay. You could do 3 to 4 sessions a week, even start with 3 and have some walking in there, some other forms of exercises. So making sure that's all up there. The other thing is flexibility. This is the third point, you're being too rigid. I'm tapping on the table. I'm getting excited. You're being too rigid with your diet. And I was that person. I'm telling you this from experience. I was the person who tracked every little detail. A little carrot. Oh, that's too much. I'd bite it and throw it away. I know, that's crazy. But I would go down to every little detail. And if it wasn't on my plan, if it wasn't part of the calories I needed, I wasn't having it. I refrained completely from alcohol. I would, eat spinach and chicken. And did I get better results then than I'm getting now? The reality is no. And also because it's so unsustainable. You end up either binging, falling off track, hating yourself, and you just can't stick to it. And truly, if you want results, you have to be able to stick to this for a long period of time. It's not happening overnight. If you want your six pack, if you want to look good in the mirror, it's not happening overnight. It could take months. It could take years, especially if you're having to reshape everything or lose a ton of weight. That's an element that I'll talk about, but patience as well is super important. But be flexible, all right? The reason I say this is include things that you enjoy within moderation that still fit into your calories. So a question I get all the time is, well, I want to lose weight, but I also want to have family dinners. I want to eat with my family. Cool. Make that work. Figure out a way that you can fit that into your calories. Something that I tell my clients when they have events or things that they want to do, put that in there. Okay, you're going to have a casserole. You're going to have a lasagna. You're going to have spaghetti. Cool. Find a way to kind of calculate that, put it in your tracker, work your way back. That way, when you get to dinner, you're not over your calories. You stayed within your calories and you still got to enjoy it. Will you maybe have to decrease your portion sizes a little bit? Yes. Nothing comes without sacrifices. If you think I'm saying flexible and flexible dieting means you get to have anything that you want, no, but it means you get to have more moderation of things. And I would rather have a little piece, I'm having 2-3 Oreos a day. I'm getting to have, desserts and things that I kind of enjoy. I'm getting to go out once in a while and have a burger and a beer. I want to include these things in my life because it gives me flexibility, it gives me freedom, and ultimately I'm still able to see the results I want and be happy with my life. And that's important to me, right? And then you can do things with your family, your friends. If your diet completely takes you away from all the things that you want to do in your life, it's probably not the right diet for you. And again, it might work in a short term, but you won't be able to stick to it. And what's a diet if you stick to it for 1 month? Because ultimately you want to be able to do things for a long period of time. I want my clients to learn that, hey, I could do this for the rest of my life if I needed to, because it's just so easy and enjoyable. And one of my clients, Scott, I'll use him as a great example. He is down over 60 pounds, not overly restrictive. Calories are reasonable, eating treats, Oreos. I think the other day he had, I forget what it was, but it was something crazy. And he was able to include this stuff and, reward himself along the way. And when my clients have big milestones, I tell them go out with your family, have a pizza, have within reason. Don't eat the whole thing, but go out and enjoy. Go get a sundae. Go do things to reward yourself because you worked that hard. And some might disagree that is not the right way to approach things. But if you enjoy the process and you're having fun along the way, you're going to stick with it and you're going to enjoy the results. And to me, this is why it's important to find that flexible approach that works for you, because ultimately that's what's going to get you the results in the long run. So to kind of recap, track. Start tracking if you're not tracking. That's number one. But you have to make sure that you're in a real deficit if you do want to lose weight. If you want to get lean, you want to get your six-pack back, you need to be in a true deficit. If you're not in a true deficit, you're not going to get it. Good luck. Second is strength train. Add some resistance, right? I'm not saying ditch the classes or the things you enjoy, but I think it is important to include at least 3 or 4 days of good, hard strength training where you are building muscle, you're building the foundation and helping your metabolism. And the third, again, is be flexible. Don't be so rigid that you can't stick to it for a longer period of time. And this is going to serve you in the long run. So I want you to get the results. I want you to enjoy this. So hopefully by listening to this, you're at least getting an idea of like, okay, this is a way that I could functionally approach this as a busy individual, right? And so there are so many other strategies that need to come into play. Changing habits. Obviously, we need to focus on probably meal prep, meal timing, other things like that. But really start with the basics. Start the idea for me of like tracking. Some people say, oh, well, I don't want to track. I don't want to. The idea of tracking is it gives you just accountability and it gives you value of certain foods so you can understand, have a better idea what's going in and out. And when you know how much you're putting in, you're going to have a better idea of, okay, I've been eating too much or I've been eating way too little. And even if you do that for a couple weeks, then you can kind of continue that on your own. But I think it is really, really important that you find the approach that works for you. And maybe that doesn't work for everyone, but I've seen it time and time again with my clients where it is sustainable, it can be enjoyable, and you will get the results in the long run. So if you are in your 30s, you're busy as heck, you got to find the approach that's going to fit your lifestyle. And I don't think it has to be completely miserable. So if you're tired of chicken, broccoli, and rice, I certainly was, even though sometimes I still eat that. But I include other things into my diet or into my overall plan that still allows me to, again, just enjoy my day-to-day. So you don't need a 7-day detox or some sort of boot camp to get you in there. You got to find something that respects you, respects your schedule, respects your craving, right? The amount of times I hear somebody say they have sweet tooth, you're talking to the biggest sweet tooth in the world. I love my sweets and I find ways to include them, whether that's a donut once in a while, my Oreos every day. If you haven't been following along, I've been doing Oreos every single day. And there's no lie. You can ask my fiance, I've been eating Oreos every day in some fashion to prove that you can have the things that you want, whatever that might be something different for you, but you can have these things that you want in moderation while still trying to get lean. And this is me working up to my wedding. So I'm having Oreos all the way up to my wedding to get nice and lean and feel good and look good for my wedding, while again, having more flexibility this time around. As I know last year when I did a little bit of a cut, it was more restrictive. It was more miserable, excuse me. And this time around, I'm really feeling good about everything. I'm not relying as much on sugar-free products, which I think were probably just rotting out my gut, or all these carbonated beverages or energy drinks. I happen to have one here, but not as many. I don't need as much of those fillers and things to keep me feeling good. I feel energized. I feel good. I've got a good balance, and I'm enjoying things that I like with a little more freedom and flexibility, and still getting amazing results. And at the end of the day, if you're not stepping on stage, you do not need to be absolutely, completely restrictive with your lifestyle. And I will stand by that. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Look out for the next episode where we'll talk more about fitness, injury rehab, and flexible nutrition.